Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets are parting ways, but it looks like Rodgers could be left without a team this offseason. We'll play veteran quarterback matchmaker on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome in to the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman Tyler Rowland, joined today by Locked On NFL expert, the brain, Luke Braun. On today's episode, we are playing a little veteran quarterback matchmaker. We're going to talk about Russell Wilson, maybe reuniting with Pete Carroll in Vegas, talk about what the best option for Matthew Stafford, if he were to get traded, would be. But we'll start with Aaron Rodgers and Luke's very own Sam Darnold. Before we dive into it, I do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen and for being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. And Luke, a guy you know very well in Aaron Rodgers, looks like he may be hitting the market. My guy John Butchko from Locked On Jets broke down the latest.
Jay Glazer reports Aaron Rodgers' Jets career is over. I'm John, the host of Locked On Jets, and Fox Sports' Jay Glazer has a huge report that the Jets have met with quarterback Aaron Rodgers and informed him he is not part of the team's plans in the future and that he will not return as the Jets quarterback in 2025. This was really the only move the Jets can make. By any standard, the Rodgers era was a complete failure for the Jets. Of course, that first season, it wasn't his fault. He was injured. He suffered the Achilles injury in Week 1 against the Buffalo Bills. But 2024 was just a complete disaster for the Jets. The team went 5-12. The team talked about a Super Bowl run preseason, but they ended up being one of the worst teams in the league. And Rodgers' play was a big part of that. He had one of the worst seasons of his career. It just does not look like he can play at an elite level anymore. And he would have cost the team another $37.5 million if he returned. Beyond that, the Jets just needed a fresh start. They needed to turn the page. Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji are now the people in charge. And it was time to move on from Aaron Rodgers. For more on the Jets, tune into the Locked On Jets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So if the Jets are moving on from Aaron Rodgers, the question becomes, who is a good fit for Aaron Rodgers? And I think you see a lot of the conversation out there. Some people are saying that Rodgers may be playing musical chairs and not have a chair to sit in by the time the offseason music stops playing.
I get it, because I don't know who would want to be a part of that after seeing how it went in New York. You know, the first year getting hurt, nobody's really holding that against anybody. It happens. But they were really supposed to contend, and the reasons that they didn't came down not necessarily to Aaron Rodgers' play, although it was definitely less than they hoped, but to Aaron Rodgers' personality. Getting all of it, like, he had roster control. Nobody's going to give him that. I don't know who's going to give him the money that he's going to ask for. Although I don't think that the money is necessarily what he's in this for. I don't know if he's going to ask for $1 bajillion. Like, he just isn't at that point in his career. So, yeah, I'm not sure if he does end up anywhere either. I still kind of feel like he just wanted to put down 1 year so that he didn't go out. He said this in his Netflix documentary. He didn't want to go out on a cart. He didn't go out on a cart, right? He went out on a bad season, like many quarterbacks do. But I think there's more dignity in that than going out on an Achilles injury and then just hanging it up after.
No, I agree with you there. The prevailing thought seems to be maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers would be a fit. I just don't know that I could see Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin as a combination. And
no, Steelers have their guy in the building right now.
Right.
Whichever it is, they have the guy they want.
Does Pete Carroll want Aaron Rodgers maybe in Vegas? I think a lot of this will be clear after the draft happens to see which teams actually make those moves to get quarterback. But I agree with you. There isn't a clean fit for Aaron Rodgers. I will say, though, I think at the back half of the season, he was playing a little bit better than he did at the beginning, and we can't act like the Jets' offensive line played up to expectation either. And like you said, it's not all on Rodgers. That was a big part of it. I think that going into 2025, personality-wise, we may get a different Aaron Rodgers. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to be wanting any say on the roster. I think it would be like, I compared it to Thanos sitting down at the end of Infinity War after wiping out half of the universe. Like, I feel like Rodgers might be able to just have a joyful last year where he doesn't worry about getting all his buddies on the team. He doesn't worry about how much he's paid. He doesn't want to be this and that, and knows he's not building a Super Bowl team like they were selling in New York. So I think that can make the personality thing maybe less impactful than it's been in the past, but that's always a risk for sure. Which
yeah, like
makes
how do you
Right.
do teams trust that? Like
Yeah.
he wants dignity. If you watch the Netflix thing, it's
Yes.
you have to watch it ironically. It's ridiculous. But
come to Tennessee. He owns a house there, no state taxes. He was hyping up the state of Tennessee on Pat McAfee.
Really?
So I'm just saying.
is that something you like?
I personally, as a Titans fan, do like that because I don't want to
Okay.
commit the money to Sam Darnold long term. I think that would be a mistake because he's going to be way more expensive. But I also don't think that like Aaron Rodgers is somebody who's absolutely terrible. He would be better quarterback play than what the Titans had last year. So it's kind of that perfect window. But there's a better
You're
fit.
not helping
We'll do
the
home cooking
Titans jersey makes everyone look old allegations.
Yeah, well, hey, that's fine. This year isn't about winning for the Titans, all right? I'm not worried about the W's this year. But let's do some more home cooking because Sam Darnold is a guy who is probably the number one free agent quarterback available. If Sam Darnold's available, or if Matthew Stafford's available, which we'll talk about here in a second, Matthew Stafford's situation, I would put Stafford over Darnold. But quite honestly, Darnold's the best quarterback available this offseason, in my opinion. There are risks with that. Do you think it's more likely that the Vikings do Sam Darnold a favor and let him go into free agency because he's earned that? And it's kind of been like a handshake deal with Darnold and the Vikings all along anyway? Or do you think that the Vikings will play this cold like a business and tag Sam Darnold and then look to trade him?
So they have been speaking in such a manner that leads me to believe they're letting him hit free agency. Mostly Kevin O'Connell has been saying all offseason he has earned the right to be a free agent. That doesn't sound like a team that intends to tag him. They also used the same phrase with Kirk Cousins last year where they just kind of let him walk, and he had a better offer on the table well before, like at the combine. I think he got a better offer, and it was pretty clear that the Vikings weren't going to match it, and they went, okay, then so be it.
Where do you want to see him go? Where do you want to see him go then? If
Man, so here's the thing.
The
for me,
I like the Giants as a fit. I just got to throw that out there. I think
so.
That
For
would
me,
make sense.
I will become a fan of wherever he goes. I love this dude, right? So I will be more inclined to watch that, and I don't want to do that with the Giants. No. Put him on the Rams. If Stafford's going to retire or whatever the situation is there, I would love to see him on the Rams. I would have loved to see him go to like Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers. Doesn't sound like they're moving on from Purdy. But I think he's going to end up in one of these QB needy places that doesn't feel like they can solve this in the draft. Whether that's because you're the Tennessee Titans, and you look at these draft quarterbacks and you say, I hate this, and you just bring in Sam Darnold, or you're somebody like the Raiders that doesn't draft high enough. And you don't feel like you can get that guy, and you just bring him in. Whoever doesn't feel comfortable with the draft, I think that's the best fit there. And you just have to know, if you're getting Sam Darnold, you have to understand that you have to lean into aggression and you have to lean into volatility. You just have to know you're going to get turnover worthy plays, but you're going to get enough explosive plays to make up for it. And you kind of have to, like, he has to throw an interception, and you have to bring him back to the sideline and say, hey, don't worry about it, and like get him back into the swing of things. If you're the kind of coach that's going to like light him up over that, it ain't a fit.
The problem is that all of the quarterback needy teams that are most realistic to go after him, the Raiders, the Jets, the Saints, the Titans, are a strong connection there. We're hearing none of those teams are anywhere close to having the roster that the Vikings had or the coaching that the Vikings had. And
no, I do like it for Pete Carroll though. I like the vibe of Pete Carroll.
Okay,
for
the
that.
Raiders.
Yeah, I don't care that they don't have the roster. That's okay. They're not going to go 14-3. Nobody expects that. But I think like Pete Carroll is the kind of guy that Sam Darnold can throw a hideous interception, and I feel like Pete Carroll can kind of guide him out of that.
I understand that. I guess I just question with the money that Darnold's likely to command on the open market and the quality of the roster of the team that would be likely to offer him that, how those two combinations together can create maximum value from the move itself. And to me, I have a hard time seeing any team that does pay Sam Darnold what he's likely to require. I have a hard time figuring out how they put an environment around Sam Darnold to make that contract worth it. That's where I get hung up ultimately.
I don't know if it's going to eclipse the Daniel Jones deal or not. and 2 years,
Same
cap
situation.
inflated, that looks a lot better, right?
Mhm.
But for Darnold, my understanding is that he is going to be a merc, and it's going to be about money. I don't think he's going to be too worried at all about what the roster looks like when he's signing a 4-year deal. That roster is going to change while you're there.
Life-changing contract is ahead of him. He could get 4 years, $160 million with, $100 million guaranteed, averaging $40 million a year, which is right there in average starting quarterback land. But with that being said, a lot of quarterbacks to discuss. 2 quarterbacks that could be traded: Matthew Stafford, Derek Carr. Are they on the move? What's their fits? It's Locked On NFL, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. Post your job. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip: add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn has helped them find high quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, Luke, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL, playing a little matchmaker with the veteran quarterbacks. Rodgers, not quite a great fit. I threw Pittsburgh out there, but, nobody may be the best partner for retirement, may be the best dancing partner for Aaron Rodgers. Sam
the Fox
Darnold,
Sports crew, pregame show.
The Giants, the Raiders, maybe the Titans could be an option for Sam Darnold. But let's move to some quarterbacks that aren't set to be free agents or expected to be free agents right away, at least. Looking at Matthew Stafford in the Los Angeles Rams. So I find this interesting, but we got some big reports over the weekend during the Super Bowl about what Matthew Stafford's future might hold. And my guy Doug McCain from Locked On Rams went over all of those recent reports.
There has been a lot of speculation about Matthew Stafford this offseason. The Giants, they hired Matthew Stafford's brother-in-law for a role. You had Malik Neighbors tweeting out 9 in a Rams emoji and a 10 in a Rams emoji. There's been a lot of speculation, but a lot of people within the industry, and I've talked to people as well, they really do feel like Matthew Stafford ultimately is going to end up back with the Los Angeles Rams. ESPN Jeremy Fowler, he wrote recently, by all accounts, Stafford was happy with the direction of the offense this season, and multiple people with this team say it doesn't seem as if changes are coming, but other teams will inevitably call the Rams to gauge trade interest anyway. Stafford will be the top quarterback available if Los Angeles entertains the idea of moving him. And then there was another report by Dan Graziano of ESPN, who had some encouraging news about Matthew Stafford's future if you're a Rams fan. He wrote, Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford is likely to return to LA in 2025, according to sources close to the situation. The past 2 seasons have been good for Stafford, who turned 37 on Friday and believes the Rams leadership gives them the ability to contend every year.
And then you got Matthew Stafford's wife coming out and saying, I want to get him the respect that he deserves. I love Los Angeles, but I love an adventure. Like, his wife is publicly putting pressure on the Rams to make a decision on this. So I know before the show, Luke, you were like, wait a minute, because this sounds so crazy, but you cannot tell me there's a better fit for Matthew Stafford in the NFL than the Rams themselves.
I'm not going to try to. Yeah. No, I think it would be insane for these two parties to go to a divorce. For me, I always, like, the second Stafford won that Super Bowl, I felt like, okay, he's now going to be a Ram till he's not playing football anymore.
Right.
And that's going to be the decision, is when he's going to hang him up. But we're not there now, and I don't think we're going to be there imminently. But yeah, that So yeah, before the show, I was like, there's a Stafford situation, and I had caught a little wind of this and just immediately dismissed it as like offseason hand wringing. I don't buy it at all. He's a Ram. Next.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Now, just for this, you know me, Luke, I love, for the sake of argument, discussions. I will say that, again, the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think they're a team with a good defense.
Oh my God.
You bring Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford to the
It'd be
Pittsburgh
the first serious
Steelers.
quarterback they've had since what, Roethlisberger?
Exactly.
Like,
yes, you add Cooper Kupp to George Pickens. I think their skill sets mesh very, very well. If Pittsburgh uses the rest of their assets that they don't use in those moves to address the offensive line, an improved offensive line leads to an improved run game. They could not run the ball with consistency. Running the ball is all about the O-line. Yeah, you add a special player like Saquon Barkley and you turn that up, but the base of being a good running team is the offensive line, and they need to improve there. If they use all their assets to improve the offensive line and then they go get Matthew Stafford, I think that would make the Pittsburgh Steelers a serious contender. But again, the question becomes not who makes the most sense for Matthew Stafford, but who the heck would the Rams get to replace Matthew Stafford that would give them a better chance to win? And that answer is absolutely no one.
I mean, look, if you send Stafford to the Steelers in your hypothetical, you're putting Justin Fields and Russell Wilson on the market. There's a couple options.
And those aren't better than Matthew Stafford. So it would just
no, right. It's like,
yeah,
this would be like, I don't think the Rams would ever, if the Rams willingly let Stafford go, we got to drag him. But again, I say if that spot does open up, the idea of Sam Darnold in Los Angeles feels really, really fun. And I don't think he's a better quarterback than Stafford. I love Stafford. I think Stafford is is a top 5 QB in this league.
I think he's top 10,
and
but fair enough.
Yeah, sure. And I think that he is, one of the best doing it right now. He's consistent. He still has enough of the talent he had when he was younger, but with a lot of the kind of negatives of gunslinging has sort of washed away with age. And like he has aged very, very well. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason the Rams were kind of the only team in the playoffs that could give that made it close with the Eagles.
Yes, correct. And it was him.
And it was him. Yeah. I don't know. If I'm the Rams, I'm running every single piece of that back that I possibly can. But shoot, man, if he decides that he's angry and he wants out and you can't retain him because the situation gets messed up, Darnold in a McVay offense, man, it works.
Fair enough. Now, listen, the question, like I said, is always who do they get to replace him? And that would be an interesting replacement. But we move to our next quarterback, and it's Derek Carr. And it sounds like my guy Ross Jackson from Locked On Saints, the mastermind, he's not too concerned about replacing Derek Carr. And thinks the Saints should definitely let him go.
The reason why I think that it makes sense for the Saints to part ways with Derek Carr, and I'll be honest, I think it makes sense for Derek Carr as well, is that he is not long for New Orleans. He's not the Saints' future quarterback. This decision isn't really about Derek Carr. This decision is really all about who Kellen Moore wants to invest his time with at the position. You find success with Derek Carr in 2025. At best, he's with you in 2026, and then that's kind of the end of it. You find success with Spencer Rattler in 2025. He could still be your quarterback come 2035. For Kellen Moore, he could say like, okay, well, I did a year with your young guy, right? Moved on from Derek Carr, and I did a year with your young guy. Now, that didn't work. Let me go and get my guy. Or look what I did with your young guy. Look how successful he is. We're rolling.
So it sounds like Ross is on board with moving Derek Carr, and I get it. The Saints are going nowhere fast. If they just started Spencer Rattler all year and took their medicine and ate some of their cap situation, some of their contracts that they need to just eat instead of restructuring, like if they just accepted that they're not going to be good this year, let's see what Kellen Moore can do with Spencer Rattler and then regroup after the season. I think that would be the smartest thing. Does ownership have patience for that? I don't know, but I agree that it's time to let Derek Carr go.
Yeah, when you're in the first year of a new head coach and that first year goes bad, like everybody's got a little bit of cushion. And I don't think that the Saints are in like a rush. You know, they just like it's different when it was Dennis Allen, who was basically a continuation of the same thing. But this is the Saints for the first time since Sean Payton got there, turning the page to a new deal. I think Ross saying that Spencer Rattler could be the quarterback in 2035 is a lot. I don't think that works
Yeah,
at
come
all.
on.
I don't
Ross.
think you would expect that to work. You're just giving it its due. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
But I don't think that there's not a lot of great options. I feel like the Saints could be one of those teams. The Saints could be one of those teams that just brings in Aaron Rodgers, where you just look, we just need to kind of hunker down and wait for some time to pass so that we can, wait for some of the dead cap hits and stuff that we've done to like expire, wait till a better QB draft class so Kellen Moore can handpick his guy and feel better about it. Like the Saints just need to like bide their time a little bit. And that's when you bring in a 41-year-old veteran and say, I don't know, maybe something weird happens.
That's when you bring in Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk Cousins to the Saints
my God, yeah.
makes a lot of fit because Kirk just got replaced by Michael Penix. I think he has to understand that it's not a given. You can develop Spencer Rattler, go to Spencer Rattler halfway through the year and take your medicine that way. But Kirk Cousins, Kellen Moore, getting the ball out quick, I think that would make a lot of sense. Now for Derek Carr, I'm sorry,
offensively for sure.
I'm home cooking in the kitchen on this one. Derek Carr to the Titans is a perfect fit. That's a perfect fit. He's a better player than Aaron Rodgers at this point in his career. Derek Carr, top 10 quarterback in Pro Football Focus rating. Just saying, he had a pretty decent year when he was playing. There were other parts of the Saints that were terrible. He's not great. He's an average starting quarterback in the NFL, but he's not going to be as expensive as Sam Darnold. He's probably not going to get as much long-term money as Sam Darnold. And Brian Callahan worked with Derek Carr when Brian Callahan was a coach for the Raiders in 2017, 2018. So there's a personal connection. Brian Callahan's honeymoon period is over as the first year of the Titans head coach. I think he's on the hot seat and could be fired midseason if the team plays very poorly. Getting a veteran quarterback, whether you draft a quarterback number one or not, getting a veteran quarterback in Derek Carr who you have a personal connection with and familiarity with that doesn't give the long-term financial commitment that Sam Darnold presents. I think Derek Carr is a perfect fit for the Tennessee Titans.
That's very persuasive to me. I'm with you there. That totally all makes sense with Derek Carr and the Titans. As for Cousins and the Saints, here's the only snag. Knowing Cousins, the way that I know him from covering him for years, he is very into security. And I don't know if one stupid year that like a 1-year deal with the Saints and then he's got to go somewhere else. I'm not sure if he would like that. I'm not sure if he would be willing to do that. I think he maybe would want to go with a team that is going to give him 2 or 3 years. And he thought he was getting that with Atlanta and kind of got burned. And he's going to say, no, like, you commit to me. Make me your guy. And will the Saints do that?
Who's going to do that for Kirk Cousins at his age? We're going to discuss that right now as we cap off Locked On NFL. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started because there's no better place to get in on that NBA action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss opening tip-off, or want to bet a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine live bets into same game parlays. I love a same game parlay. I also love FanDuel's live betting feature, again, because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or looking to pick a player to hit a clutch 3 like Luka Doncic on the Lakers, baby. I never feel like I missed my chance. The app's super easy to use. You get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Luke, so let's continue our veteran quarterback matchmaker discussion. We got to Kirk Cousins a little early, but that's all right because there's so much meat on the bone. We're talking about Kirk Cousins wanting a commitment. Sure, you want a commitment, 2 to 3 years, but you're 36 years old. You're coming off an Achilles injury. You didn't look good last year. You looked affected by the Achilles injury with your mobility early in the season and then your velocity on your throws late in the season. I know that Kirk Cousins may want 2 to 3 years, but I want $1 million right now for hosting Locked On NFL. It does not mean that you're going to get it. Okay. So who out there, who among us would pay Kirk Cousins for 2 to 3 seasons? I think if he accepts his role as a backup and a mentor and a bridge quarterback, then I think he could get 2 to 3 years of money on backup type money, but he's not getting 2 to 3 years of $20 to $30 million. I just don't see that unless you have a fit that would do it.
No. And it's not like, what about 2 to 3 years, but he'll do it for like 15 a year? Because I don't think he cares about the actual number anymore. He's made his money. He wants security. And
2
I
years
think
of
you're
guarantees, I'd do it. I couldn't
2
do
years of
3
guarantees.
years
He would take that. I think 2 years of guarantees.
Yeah. $30 million, $40 million contract, $30 million guaranteed, 2 years.
I think he would take something like that. Yeah. And the other thing
That's
is
the contract I want to give Derek Carr for the Titans. So
the kinds of NFL teams that get in these discussions in February are really stupid and would do dumber things in a heartbeat than signing Kirk Cousins to a 2 or 3 year deal with like guaranteed money. I kind of feel like the Jets would slam this.
Yeah. That would be an interesting fit. I can see that. Well, you know,
like,
there's
they don't
all
want to
these
go back
open
into
spots.
Zach Wilson world. Like they do want the veteran thing. It's just that their veteran is insane. So they're going to bring in a different guy who's insane in a different way that could possibly be productive.
The only thing I think is who ends up with the quarterbacks is really going to dictate who really does this. But the thing is, the free agency happens before the quarterback. So it's interesting. I would say that there's the Titans, the Browns. I am not as convinced that the Browns make some kind of big move at quarterback.
Sound like they are. Sounds like they're going to try another Deshaun Watson year and go, well, yeah, you got hurt.
Right. They got to just eat the money is basically what it comes down to, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But the Titans, the Giants, the Jets, the Saints, the Raiders, that's 5 teams right there in the top 10 picks. Whichever 2 of them get the rookie quarterback, like it'll just be interesting how it all plays out. Some of these quarterbacks might be waiting a while. Maybe a guy like Russell Wilson, who I wanted to bring up, who he's going to be a free agent on the market. Sounds like the Steelers are not going to be bringing him back. A lot of rumors out there about a reunion with Pete Carroll in Vegas. Do you think that that's just what's going to happen? Because it seems like too likely to act like it's not going to be the case.
That they did not part on good terms.
Good terms, right?
Yeah,
but he did sign Darrell Bevel as the offensive coordinator, so there's even more familiarity with Russell Wilson there.
Yeah, no, I get the familiarity, but that doesn't that might have bred some contempt.
Fair enough.
I don't know if that's exactly the situation just because they've been together before. I actually think Russell Wilson is perfect for one of these teams that's going to draft a guy. If you feel like you're going to draft a rookie, I mean, you don't want to shove him in week 1 with absolutely no recourse if he's not ready, right? So some of these guys are at points in their careers where they should be bridge quarterbacks, and like Kirk Cousins was very famously not willing to do that. So I don't know. So I think he has to go to a team that's like 13th and won't get a rookie. But if you are, say, the Giants, or if you're the Titans and you want to draft one of these guys, bringing in someone like Russell Wilson, longtime starter, not expecting him to be the Super Bowl player he was in Seattle, but just expecting him to be reasonable and a mentor to a young guy and say, hey, you're at the tail end of your career, bring somebody else in, feels like the move. I don't hate that to the Titans or to
Here's the only
even
issue
the Raiders, because
say.
I do think that one of these quarterbacks could fall to 6 to the Raiders. Like,
the Raiders make sense, but Brian Callahan wants to be basically like a spread West Coast system. Quick timing, precision.
Okay, yeah, that's not
and that's just not Russell Wilson's game, in my opinion.
Yeah,
exactly. I think maybe a place like the Giants, like say the Giants draft Cam Ward number 3 or Shadur Sanders number 3, and they have Russell Wilson on a cheap contract. I think that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Is there any other?
You'd look at that and say, okay, there's a clear vision.
Like Justin Fields, Jameis Winston, Garner Minshew, Daniel Jones, your guy in Minnesota. Is there any other quarterback that you would maybe take ahead of the quarterbacks that we've talked about so far?
I think there might be an argument for Fields, but I think he stays in Pittsburgh. Like right now, my sense of this, total instinct, total gut feeling is that they let Russell walk and they try a Justin Fields chapter. It's one of those 2 guys. That's been made clear. So I think he's worth talking about. I think Daniel Jones, for me, is going to have to do his backup thing for a while, and then maybe gets another starting job later. He might.
He might
that
even
might
be
be
able
exactly
to start
what
a
he
couple
does.
of games, you know? Like,
Yeah, him and JJ McCarthy in a camp competition, and you see how that plays out. Seems like kind of the first plan that they're gonna, or the second plan that they're gonna consider after they consider Sam Darnold. And if they decide no on both of those guys, then they enter a market looking for not Russell Wilson, but like a Jimmy Garoppolo, like somebody that can serve more as a backup than a starter, but maybe a bridge starter if, JJ McCarthy still needs a couple weeks.
Sure, absolutely. I think it'll be very interesting to see. Again, it's veteran quarterback musical chairs at this point. There are so many chairs, so many quarterbacks. The music's going. The music's going to stop here in a couple of months. It's going to be very interesting to see where everybody lands. But with that being said, that is going to do it for today's edition of Locked On NFL. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in. I am your host, the Madman, Tyler Rowland, with my co-host, the Brain, Luke Braun. As I tell you every episode, stay safe out there.